I was 52. Chair of vocal performance at Elmwood College, a school so small and obscure it might as well have been invented just for me to quietly fail in. My office was a wreck. Sheet music bleeding from drawers. Cracked leather scores stacked like neglected tombstones. Posters from my Juilliard days curling off the walls like they couldn't bear to watch me anymore. I used to joke it smelled like ambition and mildew. Mostly mildew. They said I had the voice for the Met. They said it like it was fact, not hope. The Bell. Someone once called me. A nickname that stuck for exactly one semester before I choked on a Mozart aria at a Manhattan audition and never quite recovered. I had the training, the phrasing. I could float a pianissimo on a thread of breath so delicate it made grown men cry. And yet the stage always stood just out of reach, like some cruel mirage. One missed callback became 5. One winter flu torched a recital. Nerves crept in, and then they stayed, nested deep. And the years did what years do, they passed. I told myself I'd teach for a while, just until things picked up. Elmwood offered security, a title, a door with my name on it. I took it. One semester became 2, then 5 years, then 10. And then I was a fixture. Professor Pierce, the man with the booming baritone and the twitch behind his left eye. I wore my tenure like armor. Heavy, suffocating, but necessary. Teaching was fine. I was good at it. Breathing placement, resonance. I could drill it into students like muscle memory. I gave them the tools I once used to believe in. And when they sang well, I smiled. When they failed, I reminded them they had time. But somewhere along the way, I stopped believing any of it applied to me. The fire was gone. What was left was ritual, routine, chalk dust and old jokes in the faculty lounge. I lived like a ghost among the living, haunting practice rooms, clapping politely at recitals, nodding through meetings I'd already forgotten before they ended. My voice, once the loudest thing in any room, had faded into memory. I hadn't sung for anyone in years, not really, just echoes in the shower. Just breath against silence. Then Emily walked in. She was 19. Sludged into the room like she'd rather disappear than take up space. Brown curls pulled into a limp bun. Eyes glued to the carpet. Her sweater could have fit 3 of her. She didn't say much. Just nodded and handed me her sheet music with hands that shook slightly at the edges. And then she sang. The note was small, unsteady, but it hit something in the room, a strange frequency that rang through the walls of my chest. Not perfect, not even good, but real, raw, untamed, the kind of sound that doesn't ask permission. I stared at her, trying not to show anything, but something inside me moved. I hadn't felt it in years. It scared me. She finished, muttered something apologetic, and left. I sat at the piano for a long time after, not touching the keys. Just staring. Something about her voice lingered, like smoke, or the aftertaste of a dream you can't shake. I told myself it was nothing. Just another student, another rough gem to polish. But I knew better. You teach long enough, you start to recognize patterns. Voices, people, the ones who want it, the ones who fake it, the ones who burn out before spring semester. But every once in a while, one slips through who doesn't fit any of it. Emily was that. An unfinished phrase in a piece I didn't realize I was still writing. I thought I was done with wanting, done with chasing ghosts. But when she sang, I heard something I hadn't heard in years, hope. And God help me, I wanted it back. At first, it was routine. Emails, scales, Schubert. She'd come to my office clutching her scores like they might shield her from the world, barely whispering hello. Eyes flickering anywhere but my face. I pushed her, harder than most. I told myself it was pedagogy, precision. She needed it, but maybe I needed it more. Head up, I'd say. Breathe from the gut. Own the sound. She'd nod, red-faced, embarrassed, always polite. But she came back. Every damn week she came back. And her voice, God, her voice, it grew. Not just in volume or control. It grew in color, in depth. Each time she opened her mouth, it was like watching a lantern flicker stronger against the wind. I could see the shape of something. A force. Not just talent. Hunger. The kind I used to know. By spring, I began to dread and crave her presence in equal measure. I'd find myself checking the time too often, straightening my desk before she arrived. I wore a different shirt the day she brought in barber. That detail haunts me. I don't know why. Maybe because it was the first moment I caught myself wanting to be seen. The cabaret came, a polite little show for donors. Shrug-worthy wines and off-key duets. I sang Puccini like I always did, like it meant something. And for a moment, under those lights, I remembered what it felt like to fill a room with nothing but my voice. To matter. Then she stepped onto the stage. Her hands trembled, her eyes locked somewhere near the floor, but the first note of summertime cracked the air. Thin, yes, but piercing. Honest. There was no pretense in her sound, no polish, just vulnerability shaped into tone. The room stilled. People looked up from their phones. I stopped breathing. After the show, we lingered near the punch bowl. She picked her performance apart like a surgeon. I laughed, told her about my worst audition. The Chicago blizzard, the forgotten lyrics, the judge who fell asleep mid-aria. She laughed too. Not her usual shy titter, but something unguarded. Something that hit the back of my ribs and stayed there. That laugh was the breach. After that, things shifted. My emails to her grew longer. Softer. I still critiqued, but I began to ask questions that had nothing to do with repertoire. How was your weekend? What do you listen to when you're sad? I told myself I was being kind. Human. She responded in lowercase thoughts, late night musings. She told me about her brother, who never listened, and her mother, who worried too much. I told her things I hadn't said aloud in years. By summer, we met off campus. A diner off Route 20 became neutral ground. Safe. Familiar, booth by the window. Sunlight on cheap formica. She drank tea with too much honey. I drank coffee I didn't like. We talked for hours. About silence. About the things people carry, but never say out loud. There was a moment. She was telling me about a dream. Something strange, about a flooded house, a piano underwater, and she laughed halfway through. Her hand brushed mine on the table. Light. Barely there. But it might as well have been a lightning strike. I should have pulled away. Should have changed the subject. Paid the bill. But I didn't. I froze, heart hammering against my ribs, and she didn't move either. Later that night, in her dorm room, everything broke. I shouldn't have been there. I know that. I knew it even then. The walls were painted that institutional beige that never forgives. Her bed was too small. The sheets were tangled. My coat lay crumpled on the floor like a piece of evidence. But there was music in the way she touched me, a rhythm we fell into too easily, too fast. Her skin was warm with nervous fire. Her breath shook against my neck. And in that moment, terrible, exquisite, I felt alive in a way I hadn't since I was 23 and reckless and standing under stage lights. I told myself it was passion. I told myself it was real. I told myself too many things. But guilt doesn't wait. It arrives early. Afterwards, she fell asleep, curled in on herself, chest rising in slow, innocent breaths. I lay awake, staring at the cracked ceiling, wondering what part of me had just died, and what had been born in its place. My hand brushed against her hair, and all I could think was, "You are fire, and I am soaked in kerosene." It should have stopped there. But it didn't. After that night, nothing could be the same. As the door to her dorm clicked shut behind me, a heavy sense of finality set in. I walked home, each step pulling me further into the abyss of what I'd done, heart pounding like it was trying to remind me of my mistake. I wanted to forget, to erase the night from existence, but it clung to me, an echo that wouldn't die down. Her voice, her breathless laughter. It haunted the quiet of my small apartment. I'd lost control, let desire cloud my judgment, and there was no going back now. I should have stayed away. I should have let it be a mistake, something shameful, something buried deep. But I didn't. Instead, I found myself texting her the very next day, innocuous messages at first, checking in, making sure she was okay, that she hadn't regretted it as much as I did. But she replied, not with regret, not with caution, just a few words, light, casual, as if we hadn't shattered something fundamental between us. It was both a relief and a new kind of dread. We saw each other again, more than we should have. At first, I tried to keep it professional. We'd talk about Schubert or run through scales, and I'd try to pretend nothing had changed. But everything had. Her eyes would meet mine during lessons, and the air between us would thicken. The tension was palpable, impossible to ignore. Each session was a lie. Me telling myself it was about her voice, about her potential, while the reality of what I'd done loomed over us both. By the time spring rolled around, we'd fallen into a routine. It wasn't just about the music anymore. Weekends at a diner off Route 20, small talk over coffee, her knee brushing against mine beneath the table, both of us pretending not to notice. But we did. Every glance, every accidental touch. It was a spark, a reminder of that night, and neither of us could stop from fanning the flames. My mind told me to pull back, to end it before it spiraled any further. But when we were together, reason vanished. There was one night I remember too clearly. Late spring, when the campus was quiet, most students gone for the weekend. We met at my apartment, under the guise of a late rehearsal, but the sheet music was forgotten the moment she walked through the door. I'd tried to tell myself I was still in control, that I could stop it from going further, but the truth was, I was already too far gone. When she kissed me, I didn't resist. How could I? I was 52, her professor, 33 years older, but in that moment, none of it mattered. We were reckless, lost in the hunger of it, ignoring the world outside. And when it was over, I couldn't face what we'd done. It didn't take long for the rumors to start. We'd been too careless. Her leaving my apartment in the early hours, my eyes lingering on her too long during classes, both of us thinking no one noticed. But they did. Whispers spread like wildfire through the halls of Elmwood. I heard them in the staff lounge, in the pauses between conversations. Students glanced our way in the corridors, smirking, gossiping behind cupped hands. I wanted to believe they didn't know, that it was all just speculation, but I could feel the walls closing in. The first real sign came in October, when one of my colleagues pulled me aside after a faculty meeting. "You should be more careful, Pierce," he said, his voice low, eyes sharp with suspicion. He didn't say more, but I knew what he meant. I brushed him off, pretended not to understand, but my stomach churned with the weight of his warning. The rumors were spreading beyond students. Soon, they'd reach the administration. I was playing with fire, and I knew it. Ellie was more relaxed about it, which only fueled my panic. She'd laugh off the rumors, dismissing them as harmless. "Let them talk," she'd say, her hand slipping into mine when no one was looking. But she didn't understand what was at stake. For her, this was still new, exciting, something forbidden that thrilled her. For me, it was a ticking time bomb. My career, my reputation, everything I'd worked for was on the line, but I couldn't stop. I couldn't walk away from her, even as the ground beneath me crumbled. By November, it was too late. The dean called me into his office. His expression was cold, detached, as he slid a manila folder across the desk. Inside were emails, texts, photos, blurry but unmistakable, of Emily and me together. They had evidence. He didn't need to say much after that. "It's fraternization," he said, his voice clinical. "You've crossed a line, Pierce." I sat there, numb, as he told me I'd be dismissed, tenure revoked, my name blackened by the stain of the scandal. Elmwood would bury me. And they did. We left Elmwood in silence. No grand exits. No final words. Just the dull thud of doors closing behind us. Emily packed in 20 minutes, moving with a kind of eerie calm, like she was detaching herself from something already dead. Her sweaters, her notebooks, a cracked mug she never used. All of it stuffed into black trash bags. I stood in the corner of my own life, watching it collapse without a sound. We moved to Rochester, A1, bedroom apartment with walls that peeled in flakes and a radiator that hissed like an old audience, restless and unimpressed. I got a job at a community arts center, teaching scales to retirees and overly ambitious parents who insisted their kids had raw talent. The money barely covered rent. Emily worked part-time at a bookstore and started a blog. Quiet at first, personal, a few poems, filtered photos of tea and stray cats. I didn't pay much attention. Then she wrote our story. She didn't name me, not exactly. Just called me the professor. She framed it as complicated, beautiful, impossible. She didn't lie. She just rearranged the truth. The ethics, the imbalance, the scandal, they were softened, blurred. What remained was a love story with jagged edges, and the world ate it up. The post went viral in a quiet way. Shares, reposts, quotes turned into prints. "This is what it means to be seen," one commenter wrote. "This is real." I stared at the screen, my name absent, but my shadow stretched long behind every sentence. Then came the Instagram. She posted photos of us, blurry shots in bed, coffee cups on the windowsill, our feet tangled beneath a thrifted quilt. She edited them in soft tones: cream, sepia, lavender. Healing, she captioned one. Growth, another. I didn't recognize myself in them, but I didn't object. I had no ground to stand on anymore. It escalated fast. Brands reached out. Small ones at first, eco-journals, herbal teas, then bigger names. Minimalist fashion lines, wellness products, meal kits for two. They wanted her, her story, her aesthetic. And I came with the package, the older man in the background, the professor turned husband. Mysterious, romantic, marketable. She started filming videos. Short, curated clips of us in the kitchen, me burning toast, her laughing like she hadn't in years. She choreographed them carefully, me in sweaters that made me look softer, more harmless. She guided my movements. "Smile like that," she'd say. No, softer, kind of sad. I became a role in her play. The tragic man redeemed by love, and I played it well. Because it worked, the money trickled in. Not much at first, but enough to cover rent. Then more. I watched our bank account grow while mine, the one I'd built from teaching and concerts and recitals, withered to nothing. She was the income now, the brand. I was a supporting character. At night, she would curl beside me, laptop glowing on her lap, as she replied to comments. Thousands of them. Some praised her. Some called her a survivor. Others called me things I won't repeat. "Doesn't it bother you?" I asked once, quietly, "that they think I ruined you?" She didn't look up. "Let them think what they want," she said. They're still watching. I nodded. Because what else was there to do? This, I told myself, was redemption. Maybe not the kind I imagined, but something. I had sacrificed everything. My career, my standing, my voice. And in return, I got this quiet domestic theater. This filtered frame of happiness. It was better than the silence. Right? She had 500,000 followers by the end of year 2. She started traveling. Content trips. She called them. I stayed behind. Filmed ads when she asked. Nodded at the camera. Smiled. Watched myself become a meme. Boomer husband reacts to Gen Z girl boss. I was a running joke. A symbol, a soft blur in the background of her spotlight. And still, I stayed. Because I loved her. Or maybe, I just didn't know how to be anything else. Emily shed her past like old skin. The frizzy, haired girl in thrifted sweaters vanished, replaced by a creature of perfect posture and planned angles. Her hair went blonde, then platinum. Her clothes grew sharper, her smile more sculpted. She spoke on panels now, on power dynamics, on healing, on how stories can be reclaimed. She didn't use my name. She didn't have to. I watched her rise from the quiet of our apartment, from behind the cracked screen of my laptop, as I coached retirees through Ave Maria on glitchy Zoom calls. My own voice, once thunder, now trembled with fatigue. I hadn't sung for myself in years, only for others. Only on cue, she started disappearing for days, weeks. Content work, she said. Airbnbs in Portland, lofts in Austin, retreats in LA. Always with collaborators, young, beautiful, charismatic. Gym rats, authors, podcast hosts. I saw them in her stories, arm draped around someone off frame. Her laughter tighter now, eyes always looking past the lens. My face vanished from her feed. I asked once. She shrugged. It doesn't fit the aesthetic. I stopped asking. At night, the apartment grew quieter. The radiator coughed like an old man, trying to stay relevant. I drank bourbon cheap enough to taste like punishment, and stared at the window while cars passed outside like missed chances. The music was gone. The warmth. Even the arguments stopped. She didn't need to fight me. She was already gone. Then came the night. She came home late, makeup smudged, duffel over her shoulder, eyes glassy with something colder than distance. She didn't sit down, didn't take off her shoes. I'm done, she said.
With what?
This, a vague wave at the apartment, the walls, me. You're holding me back. I wanted to laugh, to scream. I wanted to remind her of everything I'd given up, everything I'd burned down to make room for her flame. But I didn't. I just nodded. She left the next morning, took her laptop, her vitamins, her ring light, left behind a box of old sweatshirts and a sink full of mugs with lipstick on the rims. She moved into a loft with other creators, started posting again. New chapter, she called it. Fresh beginnings. There was no trace of me in it. Not even a footnote. And I remained. In that apartment, with the radiator, and the peeling walls, and the echo of a voice I could no longer summon. I scrolled through her feed at night, punishing myself. Her light burned bright and untouchable. Mine flickered in corners she'd long abandoned. Sometimes I'd hum a phrase of Puccini, just to feel something move in my chest. Nothing came. I wondered if she missed me, wondered if she thought of my hands, my lessons, the old man who gave her everything. Winter came early. The radiator finally gave out for good, leaving me in layers of old sweaters, watching my breath coil in the morning light. I stopped opening the blinds. The apartment felt quieter without her things, though some still lingered. Half a bottle of dry shampoo, a scarf balled in the closet like a sleeping animal. Her scent faded slower than her presence. I no longer taught. The community theater gig fell through when funding was cut. The Zoom students trickled away, one by one. A woman from Pennsylvania said I looked tired during a lesson and never rescheduled. I didn't blame her. My voice, once a storm, now cracked like an old record left in the sun. I tried to sing alone some nights, but nothing came out that didn't sound broken. Emily, meanwhile, soared. She had rebranded again, now a creative consultant, whatever that meant. Her content was cleaner, colder. Glass walls, steel bar stools, white orchids in vases. No more DIY aesthetics. Her voice, when she spoke, was slick, composed, and curated to the comma. No tremble, no breathlessness. Just confidence weaponized into a brand. The girl who once flushed under my gaze now stared down cameras like they owed her something. She posted once about leaving toxic mentorships. The caption was vague, but the comments filled in the blanks. People called me predator, failure, parasite. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My hands hovered over the keyboard, unsure what to type. A defense, an apology, a song. In the end, I closed the laptop. Some nights I still dream of her first lesson. How she looked terrified of her own voice. How she sang that shaky scale, barely more than a breath, and still made the air shift. I remember thinking, there you are. She found her voice. And I lost mine. I kept a small box under my bed. Inside, her first vocal score, dog-eared and highlighted in neon pink. A Polaroid from our wedding, me squinting, her mid-laugh, the city hall doors yawning behind us, a note she once left on my pillow, folded twice, that just said, you make me feel brave. That version of her is gone. I know that now, and maybe, so is mine. Sometimes I sit at the window, watching college kids laugh in the snow, their boots squeak in the slush. They carry sheet music and hope in equal measure. I used to believe in that, in the promise of a voice, in the arc of a phrase. Now I just listen to the wind in the alley and pretend it's applause. I don't know if I was her mistake, or if she was mine. I don't know if I was a fool, or a man chasing the last note of a life that no longer wanted him. Maybe both. Maybe neither. Maybe that's what makes it tragic, and maybe that's the only thing that still makes it human. So now, to whoever's left reading this, whoever stumbled upon this wreckage of a life once lived, tell me, was I the monster? Was she the fire? Or was I already burning when she found me? What would you have done? Would you have stopped? Would you have let her sing? Would you? But I knew the answer. She had rewritten the story, and I was no longer in the script.